Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. This is the post-fight review for Oleksandr Usyk and Anthony Joshua. Usyk takes a split decision win, 116-112, 115-113, and 113-115 to Joshua. We'll come to that Joshua card in a moment because I can't make that work. I don't think there were 7 rounds there for Joshua, and you're reaching if you do think that there were. But in terms of this performance from Oleksandr Usyk, a very good one, and especially against an improved Joshua, who did have his moments in the fight, especially in round 9. And I guess there's a couple of things just to touch on quickly that we'll be speaking on later in the video. You had Joshua's F-bomb laden rant after the fight. He was called back to the ring to give some comments. Big mistake. Oleksandr Usyk threatening not to fight unless it's Tyson Fury for undisputed. And obviously, what is the what next for both guys if Fury's not there, but also Joshua? Where does he go now? We'll just briefly talk about that. I don't think he should retire. He said just because if he loses to Usyk, he won't retire. But obviously, that was ahead of the fight. But the fight proper, it was very much similar in stretches to the first fight. Remembering, Anthony Joshua, after that loss to Oleksandr Usyk the first time around, had that IFL TV interview and said the sweet science out the window, not going to do that. He's going to basically go to war and bring back aggressive Joshua, from his younger career. We saw shades of that, but actually I would note that interview where he said all that stuff about F the sweet science and throwing it out the bin, it's now no longer available to watch on YouTube, and check this out on screen. And so I don't know why. Maybe because ultimately they decided, look, we had some success in that first fight. If we get our tactics right for Joshua, with fine margins, etc., we can get the job done. That they obviously felt if certain tweaks were made, that they could win, that boxing with Usyk and getting a decision or getting a knockout was possible just with some tweaks. Because Joshua fought better, there was a much more confident version of Joshua in those opening 3 rounds. He did have some success, and you can arguably say that he won at least 2 of those 3 opening rounds, maybe all 3, and he looked a more confident fighter. He was having decent success with the jab, he was working the body well, he wasn't biting on the feints, and he just looked like a better version than from the first fight. And I think that confidence was helping him, that he was having some good rounds, but ultimately Usyk was downloading the data. So from round 4 on, Usyk warmed into the fight and he started to take over. He was the one that was starting to pick up rounds between rounds 4 and 8. I gave him all those rounds. He was just doing a better job. And I said in one of my tweets on Twitter that, look, this is really mirroring the first fight. It looked like the first fight in the way it played out. Joshua wasn't managing the range as well. He was fighting more mid-range. He was fighting Usyk's fight. He was getting countered. He just seemed to be falling back into that malaise of, it was like Usyk had him under a spell. But he did start to make some adjustments, and round 9 was massive. Probably the best round of the fight for Joshua, or easily, but also the best round from the 2 fights with Oleksandr Usyk. And it was body work, and this was something that he had, focused on in the first couple of rounds and had success. He landed some big thudding body shots, really came into the round. He hurt Usyk, and Usyk visibly didn't look like he was enjoying it. And on the back of that, Joshua following up, keep ripping to the body, but then he started to bring it up top as well. And Usyk looked like he was under a lot of pressure, and potentially Usyk looked like, he was on the way out. But he gets out of the round, which was not a good round for him, but he responds immediately. And this is where the winning of the fight came, because he came out strong, took the 11th round, and then basically, the 10th round, I should say, had a really good 11th round. And while Joshua was competitive in the 12th round, Usyk also had a good round there. So the winning of the fight, like the first one as well, hinged on those final 3 rounds, which for me, Usyk took. And I thought after 10 rounds, Joshua, or after the 9th round heading into the 10th, when we saw Joshua in that 10th round, he looked tired. So he put a lot into round 9. It didn't have the results in terms of getting Usyk out of there. He obviously put it on Usyk. He hurt Usyk, but Usyk weathered it ultimately gets that decision. If we go to the scorecard and then on to a couple of those post-fight things, because Joshua's rant, it was kind of, I was like watching, hardly believing what I was seeing. But Glenn Feldman, the American judge, at 115-113 to Joshua. I can't find 7 rounds for Joshua in that fight. The best I would get to by giving the swing round, which I thought round 3 was a swing round, was to a draw at best. I think 7-5 or 116-112, that is the right scorecard. So I have no issue with Usyk winning. I think if Joshua had have won, there would have been a huge controversy. As it is, a lot of people are going to be unhappy with that 115-113 card to Joshua. Joshua obviously not happy after the fight with the result. He thought he'd done it. He was off to the changing sheds. He gets called back and just starts going on this F-bomb laden rant, in which he talked about some of his upbringing and why he was boxing, and then some stuff about Usyk and cheering, and it just came across as haphazard, and he looked like a man that was in a lot of distress. And he was, as I think one of the commentators said, dealing with the loss in real time. So whoever forced him back to make some comments, it was a bad look. Joshua, was obviously very vulnerable in that moment. A lot of F-bombs. And he even made an admission. He said, I'm not a 12-round fighter. And he referenced some of those yesteryear heavyweights, 14 stone, throw a lot of combinations. But the problem for me about that statement, I'm not a 12-round fighter. Well, Joshua's fought a lot of 12-rounders. This one was a 12-rounder. He fought like he wanted to go 12 rounds. He'd said previously, after the weigh-in, I'm prepared to go 12 rounds. And he did go 12 rounds. Simply put, he wasn't good enough in the end. He didn't have enough success to get the decision, to get the win. Usyk, shot for shot, skill for skill, has proven that he's got Anthony Joshua's number. And I think the gas tank, it played a little part towards the end of the fight. I thought Joshua was better at managing his energy reserves. He didn't bite on as many feints. He looked like he was more comfortable in stretches of the fight. But ultimately, after that large barrage in round 9, he looked a bit, sort of tired and fatigued the last few rounds, and couldn't sort of mount a big final push like he did in round 9 to try to get Usyk out of there. He tried valiantly. Better performance by Joshua. You have to credit him. Better performance. He made some adjustments. But at the end of the day, he also still tried to outbox Oleksandr Usyk for large stretches of that fight. So to say I'm not a 12-round fighter, but then you tried to outbox Oleksandr Usyk over 12 rounds and you thought you got the decision. They tried to outbox Usyk just with slightly better tactics, and it didn't work. It doesn't mean Joshua's not a good fighter, because he clearly is. He's still one of the best in the heavyweight division in the world. But the game plan, again, did rely too heavily on trying to outbox Oleksandr Usyk. There was more aggression. He did look better in spots. He did have more dedication to body work, which was paying dividends, but ultimately not enough. Joshua can come again. Ahead of the fight, he'd said he wasn't going to retire, even if he lost to Usyk. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see what he does next, because that version of Joshua that was given the interview afterwards, very, a lot of emotion, as the commentator said, sort of living out his emotions in real time. It was a stupid idea to call him back. Usyk, he said when he was asked about Tyson Fury, do you want to fight Fury? And he said, look, if I'm not fighting Fury, I'm not fighting at all. And right now he's off contract. And I guess at 35 years old, Oleksandr Usyk, he's got an undisputed fight in sight. He will probably want to move heaven and earth to make it happen. Tyson Fury talks a lot of smack about what he's doing, retired, all this sort of stuff. But we shall see. But Usyk, he wants that fight. He wants the legacy. And against Fury, he does have a chance to beat him. But Tyson Fury, a very different style and kettle of fish from Anthony Joshua. And significantly more height and reach advantages. And he can move well. He is just a nightmare stylistically for anyone, Fury. But also so too Usyk. But Usyk, deserved winner here. Feel for Joshua. He put in a better effort. It wasn't enough. And they shouldn't have let him take the mic after it. What'd you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.